case scenarios in long case. So as I told you, in the long case, you will be getting cataract in various combination. So today we'll be discussing about hypermature cataract in one eye and pseudophakia in another eye. And brown cataract also, or nuclear cataract also we'll discuss. So the case scenario is patient name is XYZ, aged about 68 years. Complaints of diminution of vision in left eye since 3 years. DV was gradual in onset, progressive in nature, not associated with pain. No history of colored halos around the bulb. Colored halos will be seen only in immature cataract. In mature hypermature cataract, patient will not see the colored halos. Past history of cataract surgery in right eye 4 years back. So this is the complacency of the patient. Once patient has got bilateral cataract and if he undergoes cataract in surgery in one eye and he or she gets good vision, they will try to neglect the other eye and the other eye will go up to hypermaturity. The family history is nil particular. Personal history, diet mixed bowel and bladder normal. Sleep is good, no addiction. Drug history, patient is a known hypertensive on treatment. The patient is an old man, conscious, coherent, moderately built, well-oriented time and place. No generalized lymphadenopathy. No organomegaly. No pedal edema. No pallor, no icterus, no pyelonekia. CVS is normal, respiratory rate is normal, CNS is normal. In local examination, visual acuity is 6/9, uncorrected in right eye. And in left eye, it is only perception of light positive. Head posture is normal. Ocular movements we discussed in detail while discussing about the immature and mature cataract. So I will not touch that. So versions and duction movements are normal. Patient is orthophoric. Torchlight examination. Conjunctiva is normal. So we'll complete the left eye first because whenever the patient is having leading complaint in one eye, while presenting in the exam also, you are supposed to present that eye first and then go to the other eye. Okay. So in this patient, the patient is having leading complaint in the left eye. Right eye is already operated. So even though the light eye can also be kept as a short case for you, but we'll try to present it with the left eye findings first and then go to the right eye. Okay. The conjunctiva in left eye is normal. Cornea is transparent, surface normal, shape is elliptical, no abnormal vascularization is seen, no abnormal sensations are normal. Normal depth, AC is normal depth and contents are normal. Pupil is central, round, reacting to light, direct and consensual. Iris is brown in color, pattern normal, no abnormal vascularization, no cysts, no nodules or atrophic patches. Now coming to the appearance of the lens. I told you in the immature cataract it will be grayish white in appearance and mature cataract it will be pearly white. In hypermature cataract it is typical milky white in appearance. The lens will look milky white. There is no iris shadow and you can see the calcification of the anterior capsule of the lens. And sometimes you will see the cholesterol crystals shining on the anterior capsule. And nucleus, if you remember the anatomy of the lens will contain anterior capsule, posterior capsule, cortex, and in the center will be the nucleus. So when the cortical matter liquefies, so the nucleus will try to sink into the bottom of the lenticular bag. This is a very typical finding of hypermature cataract. And on distant direct ophthalmoscopy, there is no red glow. The red glow is also not seen in mature cataract. It will be seen only in immature cataract. Okay. Now you can see here the typical appearance of the lens is milky white. In immature cataract, it will be grayish white. In mature cataract, it is pearly white. In hypermature cataract, it is milky white in appearance. Lens is milky white in appearance. And you can see the calcification of the anterior capsule. You can see the calcific spots like map, you can see the calcification of the anterior capsule. It is very typical finding of hypermature cataract. And sometimes you can see the shiny cholesterol crystals on the anterior capsule. So the findings of the hypermature cataract is it is milky white in appearance, and there will be calcification of the anterior capsule, and sometimes you will see the cholesterol crystals shining on the anterior capsule. And because the whole cortex has become liquefied, there is no support for the nucleus, and you can see this brownish amber color nucleus sinking into the bottom of the lenticular bag. This is a very typical finding of hypermature cataract. Because there is no support, the whole cortical matter has become liquefied, the nucleus will sink into the bottom of the lenticular bag. So whenever the hypermature cataract is kept, you get in a long case, the most common questions which will be asked is, what are the complications if you don't operate upon a hypermature cataract? The patient will go in for phacolytic glaucoma. This anterocapsule is weak and micropores will develop in the anterior capsule, and the cortex, liquefied cortex, will leak and comes out into the AC, and it irritates the iris and ciliary body, and patient will develop phacolytic glaucoma. It is lens-induced glaucoma. As I told you, there are 6 stages of the cataract. First is stage of lamellar separation. Second is incipient cataract. Third is immature cataract, intumescent cataract, mature cataract, hypermature cataract. Of these 6 stages, there are 2 stages I told you in which patient can develop lens-induced glaucoma. One is intumescent cataract, another is hypermature cataract. In intumescent cataract, the mechanism is there is sudden swelling of the lens, thereby pushing the iris diaphragm anteriorly, thereby closing the pupil and angle. Secondary angle closure will be there. Here in hypermature cataract, it is inflammatory glaucoma. As I told you, there will be bursting of the cataract will be there. Liquefied cortex will come out into the AC and irritate the iris and ciliary body, and inflammation will occur in the eye. Here you can see this. It is a case of hypermature cataract with burst Morganian cataract. The cataract burst and liquefied cortex has come out into the antechamber, and when it irritates the iris and ciliary body, inflammatory glaucoma will occur, and patient will have raised intraocular pressure. Whenever patient has got raised intraocular pressure, there will be congestion of the eye will be there, circumcorneal ciliary congestion will be there, there will be raised IOP will be there. Whenever there is raised IOP, the corneal edema will develop. So cornea will become hazy and ground glass. So these are the typical findings of lens-induced glaucoma, which occurs in hypermature cataract. If you don't operate upon hypermature cataract, the hypermature cataract can burst and liquefied cortex can come out into the AC and irritates the iris and ciliary body and causes inflammatory glaucoma. It is also known as phacolytic glaucoma, because the lens has become lytic or liquefied cortical matter which comes out from the anterior capsule, irritates the iris and ciliary body, causing inflammatory glaucoma. So when glaucoma occurs, there will be raised intraocular pressure, eye will become congested, and cornea will become hazy and edematous. Edematous cornea, you can see the diffuse opacification of the cornea. It appears ground glass in appearance because of the corneal edema. Stromal edema of the cornea will be there, which leads to ground glass appearance of the cornea. So these are the findings of lens-induced glaucoma. Circumcorneal ciliary congestion, hazy antechamber because of the leaking of the liquefied cortex, and raised intraocular pressure will be there, and there will be corneal edema. And another question which will be asked when lens hypermature cataract is kept as a long case, what are the difficulties you will face while operating upon a hypermature cataract? the difficulty is hypermature cataract is a degenerative condition. When cataract remains more mature or become hypermature, there will be weakening of the zonule will be there. So you have to be careful while operating upon a hypermature cataract. So the first difficulty which you will face is the moment you puncture the anterior capsule, the liquefied cortex will come out and it will obstruct your view. So you cannot do capsulotomy properly. So you have to again wash out the AC and then the rhexis. Sometimes it will be difficult to do curvilinear capsulorhexis in hypermature cataract. So you have to resort to envelope technique or canopnos technique only. Or sometimes you have to cut the anterocapsule by when anterocapsule is become calcified like this. So with the normal cystitome or atrata forceps, you will not be able to tear the anterocapsule. So you have to use venous scissors to cut the anterocapsule. So the first difficulty which you will face while operating upon a hypermature cataract is while doing capsulotomy. The first difficulty is when you puncture the anterocapsule, the liquefied cortex will come out and it will obscure your view. So you have to wash the AC again and then fill the AC with viscoelastic substance and then proceed with the capsulotomy. If you can do rhexis, well and good. If you can't do rhexis, you do just envelope technique. Open the capsule from here to here and then remove the nucleus and remove the cortex, implant the IOL, and then at the last you can cut the anterocapsule with the venous. The second thing is zonules will be very big. If you are rough while doing your surgery, the whole lenticular bag will come out and you have to leave the patient FAK. You cannot implant the IOL in hypermature cataract if you are not careful because the zonule is weak and whole capsular bag will come out. So you cannot place the posterior chamber IOL in hypermature cataract if you are not careful. Now we will go to the next scenario. The next scenario is pseudophakia. So whenever a wrong case is allotted to you, the patient can have in one eye immature cataract, another eye pseudophakic eye already operated. Or one eye here can have a mature cataract, another eye can have pseudophakic cataract. So one eye can have a hypermature cataract and other eye can have the pseudophakic eye. Pseudophakia, so in long case you have to describe the pseudophakic eye also, or sometimes the pseudophakia will be kept as a short case also. Then you have to take short history and then you should tell the findings, why you are telling that it is pseudophakia. So the first and foremost thing in pseudophakic eye is there will be history of operation will be there. Patient himself or herself will tell that I had underwent operation 4 years back or 5 years back. And then the second thing is in examination, you can see a scar at the limbus. At 12 o'clock limbus, you will see a horizontal line. A scar at the limbus is the second finding of pseudophakic eye. And then the third finding is AC will be deep. The iris diaphragm will go back. Why? If you remember the anatomy of the lens, anteroposterior diameter of the lens is 4 to 8 millimeters. It differs from patient to patient. Some patient it will be 4, 5, or some patient it will be bigger lens. They will have 8 millimeters of anteroposterior diameter of the lens. So, while doing cataract surgery, what are you going to do? You are removing the anterocapsule, you are removing the cortex, you are removing the nucleus, and leaving the posterior capsule, and implanting an IOL which is 1 millimeter thick. So, from 4 millimeter, you are reducing the thickness of the lens to 1 millimeter. So even if you think that the patient is having preoperatively 4 millimeters of diameter of the anteroposterior diameter of the lens, after doing cataract surgery, you are implanting 1 millimeter thick IOL intraocular lens. So the 3 millimeters difference will make the iris diaphragm fall back and patient will have deep AC. So the second finding of pseudophakic eye is the patient will have a deep AC. Anterior chamber will be deep. And then third finding is when you throw the light, torch light, ask the patient to look at your forehead and then move the torch light in the arch fashion in front of the patient. In the shape of arc, if you move the torch light, you can see the shimmering glass-like reflex in the pupillary area. You concentrate on the pupillary area. When your torch light moves in front of the patient in the fashion of arc, you will see shimmering reflex in the pupillary area. Something glass-like is shining in the pupillary area. This is the third finding of pseudophakic eye. Scar at the limbus, deep AC, shimmering glass-like reflex. Okay. And these are the findings you will see when the patient pupil is of normal size. When you dilate the pupil, you will see 4 other findings. So for that, you try to understand how a posterior chamber single piece IOL looks like. This is a posterior chamber rigid IOL, single piece IOL, which is made up of PMMA, polymethyl methyl acrylate. So the central portion which is round is the optic of the IOL through which the refraction occurs, and this 2 curved portion is known as haptic of the IOL. The total diameter or measurement of the lens will be 12 millimeters from here to here, and optic size will be 5 to 5.5 to 6 millimeters. It differs from make or company to company. Okay, and the portion where the optic is attached to the haptic is known as optic haptic junction. This portion is known as optic haptic junction. And if you carefully see, from 90 degrees from optic haptic junction, you will have 2 dialing holes. These dialing holes will help in dialing or placing the IOL in the lenticular bag. So this is how the posterior chamber single piece rigid IOL looks like. Now you come back to the case. When you dilate the pupil, the 4 additional findings which you will see in pseudophakic eye is, you will see edge of the optic. This is the edge of the optic. The round thing which you are shining is which you are seeing is, you are seeing the edge of the optic. You will see optic haptic junction, where optic is attached to the haptic. It is known as optic haptic junction. Optic haptic junction is seen, and then 90 degrees from the optic haptic junction, you will see the dialing holes. And a part of the haptic is visible. Part of the haptic will be behind the iris, which will not be visible. So again, I will show you how a rigid PCIOL looks like. So in the case, when the pupil is dilated, you will be able to see this portion only. You will see the whole of the optic, edge of the optic, sorry. You will see edge of the optic. Optic haptic junction, where optic is attached to the haptic, and part of the haptic will be visible. And remaining part of the haptic will be, this portion of the haptic will be behind the iris. You will not see it in the case in pseudophakic eye. And 90 degrees from optic haptic junction, you will see 2 dialing holes. So these are the 4 additional findings which you will be seeing in a case when the pupil is dilated. So whenever pseudophakia is kept as a part of the long case or a short case itself, you are supposed to tell these 6 findings. Patient will give the history of operation. Then you can see a scar at the limbus, 12 o'clock, horizontal line you will see. AC will be deep, shimmering glass-like reflex will be seen. And when you dilate the pupil, you will see the edge of the optic, optic haptic junction, part of the haptic, and dialing holes. So these are the 7 findings by which you can diagnose that it is a case of pseudophakia. So whenever a pseudophakia is kept as a case, short case or a part of the long case, the most common questions asked are, so how will you classify the IOLs? Or if you know, in the theory classes in detail we have taken you. The IOLs can be classified based on the material they are made up of. It is a PMMA IOL or silicon IOL or acrylic IOL. based on the position where it is placed. If it is placed in the posterior capsule, on the posterior capsule in the lenticular black, it is known as PCIOL, posterior chamber IOL. If it is placed on the surface of the iris, it is known as anterior chamber IOL. If it is enclosed to the iris, it is known as iris claw lens. So iris claw lens can be anterior on the surface of the iris, or it can be enclosed posterior surface of the iris. It can be hooked to the posterior surface of the iris also. So iris claw lens will be of two types: anterior chamber, which can be placed on the surface of the pupil, or behind the pupil also you can enclave the iris claw lens. And when there is no capsular support, you have to suture the IOL to the sclera. It is known as scleral fixated IOL. So based upon the position where you implant the IOL, they are classified as PCIOL, posterior chamber IOL, anterior chamber IOL, iris claw lens, and scleral fixated lens. So this is a typical appearance of anterior chamber IOL. So when you plan for a planned posterior chamber IOL, but surgery has become eventful. If you encountered a posterior capsular rent, vitreous loss is there, and there is no capsular support, so you can do anterior vitrectomy and implant the anterior chamber IOL. Anterior chamber IOL or Kelman multiplex IOL looks like this. The lower picture shows you the Kelman multiplex IOL. So the center portion is optic, and this curved portion is haptic. So the main difference between the anterior chamber and posterior chamber IOL is, you can see here, in posterior chamber IOL, the haptic is C-shaped. Because you are implanting this in the capsular bag, nothing will happen. If the same thing, same structure thing, if you implant in the anterior chamber, you will be closing this much of the angle, nearly 180 degrees of the angle, 90 degrees here and 90 degrees you will be closing. So the chances of patient developing glaucoma will be there. So that's why the designer, when they designed the anterior chamber IOL, they saw to it that only this portion will touch the angle, this portion and this portion and this portion and this portion will touch the angle. And there will be concavity will be there, so that the angle is remain open and patient doesn't develop angle closure glaucoma. Okay? And you will be placing it on the surface of the iris in the anterior chamber. That's why it is known as ACIOL. And all of you know what are the complications of ACIOL, and you should know in detail what are the complications of ACIOL, why it is not preferred. Only in compromised situation you will be using ACIOL. This is anterior iris claw lens. So iris claw lens will have a cut opening in the haptic. So you will open this and pinch the iris like this. And when you place it over the surface of the iris, it is known as anterior iris claw lens. So whenever you place an IOL in the anterior chamber, the chances of pupillary block glaucoma can be there. As you all know, the aqueous is formed in the posterior chamber by the ciliary body, and aqueous will come into the anterior chamber through pupillary opening, and it is drained in from the angle of the anterior chamber through the trabecular meshwork into the canal of Schelm, and episcleral veins will drain out the aqueous. This is the normal flow of the aqueous. It is formed by the ciliary body in the posterior chamber. From the posterior chamber, it will come into the anterior chamber through the pupillary opening, and in the anterior chamber, from the angle of the anterior chamber through the trabecular meshwork, it will be drained into the canal of Schelm, and from the canal of Schelm, it will be drained into episcleral veins. This is the normal flow of the aqueous. So when you implant an IOL, anterior chamber IOL or anterior iris claw lens, you will be placing the IOL in front of the pupil. The chances are there that pupil may be blocked. The aqueous which is formed in the posterior chamber will remain in the posterior chamber. and patient may develop pupillary glaucoma. So whenever you implant an ACIOL or anterior iris claw lens, you are supposed to create an additional opening in the iris. It is known as iridotomy. This additional opening which you are seeing here is known as peripheral buttonhole iridotomy. So whenever there is pupillary block is there, the iris claw lens or anterior chamber IOL is not allowing the aqueous to come out. This additional opening will allow the aqueous to come out, and aqueous can be drained from the trabecular meshwork in the anterior chamber. So I will show you again the anterior chamber IOL. Anterior chamber also IOL can also block the pupil. So you should have an additional opening in the periphery, that is PBI, peripheral buttonhole iridotomy, to drain the aqueous from the posterior chamber to the anterior chamber. It is mandatory. You should create a PBI whenever you implant an ACIOL or anterior iris claw lens to prevent the pupillary block glaucoma. So iris claw lens can be enclaved posterior to the pupil also. So it is known as posterior iris claw lens. The same lens, when you enclave to the posterior surface of the iris, it is known as posterior iris claw lens. The chances of pupillary glaucoma will be less, and the chances of endothelial loss will be less when you implant iris claw lens in the posterior chamber. Anything which is placed in the posterior chamber is more safer than in anterior chamber. So when there is no capsular support, the another option of implanting the IOL is you can suture the IOL to the sclera. So it is known as scleral fixated IOL. So scleral fixated IOL will look similar to your PC IOL, posterior chamber IOL, but in the haptic you will have an additional hole for proline to be passed. So from this hole, the proline, benzero proline will be passed, and then you will come out from the pars plicata, and you create a pouch in the limbus, and you implant the fix the IOL with the help of the suture. It is known as scleral fixated IOL. So because of the position of the IOL, you can classify the IOLs as posterior chamber IOL, anterior chamber IOL, anterior iris claw lens, posterior iris claw lens, and scleral fixated IOL. And based on the principal focus of the lens, you can have a unifocal IOL and multifocal IOL. When you implant a unifocal IOL, patient can see either the distant object clearly or near object clearly. So if you make the patient myopic, he will see the near objects clearly. When you make the patient hypermetropic or emmetropic, he will see the distant object clearly, but for the near, he has to use the reading glasses, as I'm using here. So if you implant the multifocal IOL will have the gradations, like the centricular gradations will be there. So from the center, the patient will be able to see the near objects, and from the peripheral rings, the patient will be able to see the different distance of the clearly. So post-operatively, patient need not wear any glasses. For near and distance, he will be able to see with multifocal IOL clearly. So based on the principal focal of the IOL, the IOLs are classified as unifocal IOL and multifocal IOL. Now another case scenario we will discuss is nuclear cataract. So the different stages which I told you will be seen only in cortical cataract. The stage of lamellar separation, incipient cataract, immature cataract, mature cataract, hypermature cataract. So as the cortical fibers grows old, they get towards the center of the lens. As you all know, the anterior capsule of the lens contains cuboidal epithelium, and cuboidal epithelium will goes on laying the cortical fibers. And these cortical fibers will be laid down from the childhood, from the embryonic age to the till you operate the case and remove the anterior capsule. Okay, so the older fibers of the cortex will get compressed into the center and they get converted into nucleus of the lens. So normally all patients will have anterior capsule, posterior capsule, cortex and nucleus. The older fibers which get compressed in the center is nucleus. Sometimes what happens in the degenerative conditions or in the smokers, the tryptophan will be laid down in the lenticular cortex and whole cortex will get converted into nucleus and lens will appear brown or black. When it is brown in color, it is known as cataracta brunescens. When it is black in color, like it, as you are seeing here, it is known as cataracta nigra. When the cataract appears black, it is known as cataracta nigra. When cataract appears brown, it is known as cataracta brunescens. In both conditions, it is a nuclear cataract. The uniqueness of the nuclear cataract is patient will have diminution of vision for the distance only. His near vision will become good. How it happens? So as we grow old, the cortex, the lens is supple structure. So it can change its principal focus. When I look at the distant object, the lens will become thin. When I look at the near object, the lens ciliary body will contract and lens will become swollen and I will be able to see the near print also clearly. So this is known as accommodation. And this accommodation will be lost as patient age advances. As you near 40 years of age, accommodation will start losing, lens will be start become rigid and the change in principal focus will not occur. So patient will be able to see the distant object clearly, but for the near, they have to use presbyopic glasses as I am using here. So in nuclear cataract, what will happen? The refractive index of the lens will change. The refractive index of the lens will become myopic. So because of the failure of the accommodation, what the patient is supposed to use +1, +2 or +3 for reading glasses, that will be negated by the increase in refractive index in the lens in nuclear cataract. In the nuclear cataract, when refractive index increases, there will be myopic shift will be there. The patient will become myopic. And because of his age and rigidness of the ciliary body, he will have +2 or +3 loss of accommodation. This +2 and +3 loss of accommodation is negated by -2 or -3 increase in refractive index of the lens, myopic shift which occurs in nuclear cataract. So what will happen? The old man with or old woman with nuclear cataract will be able to read the fine print nicely without glasses. So the grandparents will jeer at the young people who are myopes. You see, you young people are wearing the glasses. I am old person. I am reading the newspaper even without glasses. So this is known as second sight. So the characteristic of the nuclear cataract is nucleus will be bigger. The whole lens is converted into nucleus. There will be very little cortex. Zonial will be very weak. Again, it is a degenerative condition. So zonial will be weak. Patient will get the second sight. The second sight is the patient will be able to read the fine print without glasses because the failure in accommodation, which is supposed to use +2 or +3 lenses in the reading glasses as I am using, he will not use because it is negated by the -3 which he gets because of nuclear cataract, high refractive index in the nuclear cataract. So the patient will get second sight. It is very typical of nuclear cataract. Nucleus will be big, very little cortex will be there and patient will get second sight. Second sight means patient will be able to read the near vision clearly. There will be loss of only distant vision or diminution of the distant vision. So the questions which are commonly asked when nuclear cataract is kept, what's the uniqueness of the nuclear cataract? The uniqueness of nuclear cataract is it never matures because it is not a cortical cataract. So there will no be a stage of maturity, hypermaturity or any secondary glaucoma. Chances of secondary glaucoma will not be there in nuclear cataract. There is a uniqueness of nuclear cataract. The second uniqueness is patient can read the near vision very clearly. The patient gets the second sight. And nucleus will be very bigger. So while operating upon a nuclear cataract, you should be mentally prepared to make a big incision to remove the nucleus. If you make a small incision, then you will be damaging the endothelium while removing the nucleus. Okay. So these are the three things which you have heard, which will be asked whenever a cataract aberrations or cataract nigra is kept as a part of the long case. So here you can see the amber colored or brown colored nuclear cataract. It is known as cataract aberrations. In the previous picture, you can see the black cataract, cataracta nigra. So we have discussed about hypermature cataract, pseudophakia, different types of IOL, different makes of IOL, different positions where the IOL can be implanted, and about nuclear cataract. So the three case scenarios we have studied today. Tomorrow we will be discussing about aphakia. If you remove the lens and don't implant IOL, the condition is known as aphakia. So tomorrow we will discuss about aphakia, and I will for the posting. So you will be visiting the operation theater. So how the cataract surgery is done, how the peribulbar block is given. So I will be talking about what is peribulbar block, how it is given. I will show you the video, and then different steps of cataract surgery, small incision cataract surgery. In the video form, I will show you, and in between, I will be giving the commentary. What are the steps that are being, and then if possible I will, in the theory we have already covered the different complications of the small incision cataract surgery. Again I will revise you. Tomorrow we will be discussing about aphakia. I will talk about the peribulbar block, and then I will show you the different steps of the cataract surgery, small incision cataract surgery. And from next week I will start taking the short case scenario. What are the short cases which are commonly kept in your exam, and what are the commonly questions asked in that short case, and how you are supposed to answer. So today's class I end here. So we have discussed about hypermature cataract, pseudophakia, and nuclear cataract today.